On Thursday, August the 3rd, presidential troubleshooter Cyrus Vance and General John Throckmorton arrived at the White House to report on conditions in the city of Detroit. As of 12 noon on the previous day, the responsibility for law and order in the city had been returned to state authorities. There had been little in America's recent past to prepare her for the nightmarish war that hit her city streets during the summer of 1967. It had come with a sudden reality, crackling out of the overheated ghettos of Newark and Detroit. And it had spread in a strange convulsive pattern through large and small communities, from Providence to Wichita.
One thing should be absolutely clear. This matter is far, far too important for politics. It goes to the health and the safety of all American citizens, Republicans and Democrats. It goes to the proper responsibility of officials in both of our parties. It goes to the heart of our society in a time of swift change and of great stress.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the last hour, almost hour and a half, I have met with Secretary Vance and General Throckmorton, two of our most
Throughout a long, hot summer, torn with racial violence, the man most heavily burdened with a quest for solutions displayed a deliberate calm. He knew that there were no sudden or sure answers. The slums were too large and the plight of the Negro too complex for any hasty economic cures. Hopefully, his newly appointed Riot Commission would accurately profile the causes and effects of the riots and provide some long-range answers. Meanwhile, the immediate task of the administration was to keep federal help to the cities at a constant level, while moderating any future violence with a mixture of firmness and restraint. Tragically enough, the administration's ghetto programs had been severely curtailed in Congress during the year. The congressional knife had cut deeply into the Model Cities bill, rent subsidies, school aid, rat control, and the Teachers' Corps appropriation. The $2 billion anti-poverty package was in trouble. So was the administration's anti-crime bill. To President Johnson and the members of his cabinet, the prevention of crime and chaos in the streets was of prime importance. But so were other programs. Programs that could offer slum residents jobs, educational opportunities, and adequate housing. Programs that in themselves were major keys to some of the underlying causes of unrest in the cities. In early August, with defense and domestic spending running higher than his January estimates for fiscal 1968, President Johnson sent a new budget message to Congress. Then he called in the press for a rapid-fire chalk talk. He had asked for a new tax package that would impose, at least through 1969, a 10% surcharge on all corporate and individual income taxes. Along with some borrowing and belt-tightening and other fiscal measures, he hoped that the surcharge would put a sizable dent into the large probable deficit. Without the surcharge, this deficit would cause a spiral of ruinous inflation, brutally higher interest rates and tight money, and an unjust distribution of the cost of supporting the men in Vietnam. The war itself was now exceeding its earlier cost estimates. After listening to the recommendations of Secretary McNamara, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and General Westmoreland, President Johnson had decided to authorize an increase of 45,000 men to be sent to Vietnam, bringing the total of United States troops there to 525,000. And so, in August of 1967, contemporary American life entered a new phase of crisis, a crisis of national purpose that linked the problems of the city streets to the war in Vietnam, and both to the state of the economy. The president's position was clear. There were times in a nation's life when its armies had to be equipped and fielded, and the nation's business still had to go on. This was such a time. It was a time of change. Every day, old institutions, values, and beliefs were crumbling. Swift and transforming change had not only become an accepted experience of modern life, but also the source of an American dilemma. We had become the first generation to know with certainty that life would be different for our children, and even for ourselves, in just a few years' time.